Keelah! Oh, welcome back to Soul Mechanics. Finally managed to clean up around here and situate ourselves a pretty hefty chunk of time and space to work with. So, to celebrate, I'm totally psyched, to celebrate, we are going on a journey. Now, as with any expedition, you're going to be requiring certain things for this journey. What you are going to need to have with you is 1 theory of relativity, 1 black hole, 2 eyeballs, a person, and a guide. I'll be the guide, don't worry about that. Now, it's going to transpire over a short series of synchronicities that occurred, and I'm hoping to try and point out how certain primers and cues in play, and how magnetic compatibility operates for the most part. Well, I can't really cover how magnetic compatibility operates. We don't really know that yet, but we do know what it does and kind of why it's doing it. And effectively, I think this is going to eventually wind up covering the problem with quantum gravity. Because essentially that's what it is. It's quantum gravity. And what it's doing, just to briefly cover it, is that when we speak to primers and cues, primers are kind of like certain points of gravity wherein your perception falls into them. Again, space, time, space, and comprehension are the same thing. It's all the same thing. We have to really drill it down to that one soul aspect and get to that onlyness, spectacle, that first person spectacle I've been speaking of so much in principle dynamics. That everything is one thing. There's one thing happening. There's just one value in play, really. Now, primers are little kind of points of gravity that pull your perception into them. When your perception gets there, there are going to be cues made available. Cues are going to have their own little gravitational pull, and essentially what it is values. Values and then collections of values that clump together via this magnetic compatibility. Values clump together and they become shards, which what we refer to as shards, which is essentially like a piece of an identity. And what you're doing when you're playing the game, magnetic compatibility is causing for certain synapses in the brain to fire. The brain, its sense of trajectory, knows what it's doing. It knows where to go. Again, you are the subconscious aspect. You're the lesser than fully aware aspect of all this. While the superconscious facet and the brain, it knows what it's doing, it knows where to go, and it's going to try and guide you there, but you are you're the directive influence. You make the decisions. And so this is going to speak directly to what I mean when I say that you have to be fast and sharp. Fast, when I say that, there's a lot of different aspects to that, and physically moving quickly is one of them, yes, and you can, as I've said, with the impulse allows for you to move faster, in every sense, and you're going to think faster, you're going to be more alert, more aware. But when I speak to moving fast, ultimately what I'm meaning to say is that you need to be able to move from an idea to an action. You need to be able to move from a motivation to taking action fast, immediately, in most cases. That when you're dealing with synchronicity, it's going to play you harder, it's going to move faster, it's going to require you to keep up with it. When I speak to being sharp, I mean be prepared, be understanding, be able to look deep into things and understand them and know how to play them, for all intents and purposes, kind of be a salesman, know how to handle people, know how to work with things, and dress well. Don't be a joker. Anyways, so getting that out of the way, I'm cleaning yesterday, and I'm cleaning the whole apartment up and essentially getting to my office, and I played this video by the I think the dude's name is Woodward or something, Woodward TV maybe, or something like that. His channel is awesome. You should check it out. He does these what you need to know about this or that videos, and he's very clear on what he does and does not know, and he's just a very concise spotter. He knows what he's talking about in most cases, and when he doesn't claim to, and I appreciate that. But I'm watching one of his videos, and it's about insects, particularly bees. And I'm thinking, to point out, the dude's channel is going to be the primer in play here. I'm interested in this channel, so I'm watching the videos. The video itself, at this point, is going to be a cue. Now, I'm watching the video, it's about insects, I'm saying, you know what, I don't really care about this, I know a lot about insects, I used to have an obsession with ants, and so I know how hives operate and such, and I don't really need to see this, but Little Washu texts me. Now, my conversation with Little Washu, she in and of herself is a primer at this point, and the text is a cue. She sends me an image of an insect and a little like "don't panic" message underneath it, and I guess she remembers that I don't like insects, but and it's not that I don't like them. I think that they're machines, honestly. I think insects are like little robots that are designed to take after the planet, to care for the planet, and get rid of garbage and shit. That's my theory. It's not, you don't have to accept that, but they look like machines. I mean, come on. Anyways, she sends me that message, so I'm like, well, I better watch this video, because now the video itself becomes a primer in this case, and the cue is going to be a value in there. There's going to be a value or a collection of values in this video that's important to me specifically, and I know this now. However, I watch the video, I don't see anything that really drills me, and so I move along. Today, she texts me and she tells me that she's having trouble sticking to a certain diet, and she has a certain condition that causes her to have a bad reaction to certain foods, and she just can't get herself to stick to this diet. She has a bad habit of eating the foods that she doesn't like, bad being a relative term. And I tell her, you know what, let's compete. I'll stick to the same diet, and we'll see who can hold out longer. You know, the age-old solution to any problem, competition. So she says, all right, that's cool, I'll take the challenge. And she tells me that she wants me to send her pictures of boxed food that I have, so that she can help me learn how to discern what I can and can't eat, because she tells me that it's difficult to tell what's actually in there, because they hide it. The people who label it, they have a way of getting around things, and they say things, they use certain words that don't mean what you think they do, and they try to trick you into eating things that are no good for you. And that pops up in my head, the thing about bees, the honey that was in the video. Honey is pasteurized. Honey is like a superfood that can really nourish your body. It can really do a hell of a lot for you. Honey straight from the hive, that shit is like super dope. But they pasteurize it. Essentially, they burn all the bacteria out of it for the sake of preservation, and what it ultimately does is render it inert. It just destroys the efficiency of the superfood, and it becomes essentially worthless. So the honey you're eating, that's shit. But honey straight from the hive is going to really boost you. That's good shit for you. And so I mentioned that to her, and what that does, essentially, that cue comes into play because it was pulled from the video. That's a value that I have in my deck now. That's a value I have that shuffles up and tells me that this is important, this diet thing, and I need to act on it. And so I tell her, you know what, I don't have any box food at home because I cook from scratch. I don't use box food. So I tell her I'm going to run to the store and I'm going to take some pictures so you can point out shit. And I act on that immediately. I get on it. And when I get to the store, and mind you, through this, I'm trying to find better work. I'm trying to find a job that's close to home, so I don't have to fucking go all on my way and shit. And so I'm hoping to find a job that's right nearby. And when I go into Sapel's, I overhear two of the workers talking about how somebody just got fired or somebody just left and they need somebody to fill the spot. So that right there, bang, that synchronicity. Now I acted on it and I hit that marker, I hit that cue, that place becomes a primer, and those people talking becomes a cue. That's values in play. These values, as I said, the solutions for a problem, the values are going to pull together. The brain is going to act via a sense of trajectory to cause for you in relationship to the world, make these opportunities available, and the challenge is for you to act on it. Now, knowing that that's the case, knowing that the world has led me to that synchronicity, I'm psyched, because if I'm sharp enough, if I move on it fast enough, and I'm sharp enough at the interview, unless I fuck it up, it's extremely likely. The probabilities of me getting that job are super high. So, plus I got a kind of a thing for the cashier, so I'm happy about this. I'm psyched about it. And what I do on the way back is I get this little game to kind of celebrate. I'm happy, so I'm going to get a game on my phone. I'm going to play it. And I get this game that's like a what you could call a text adventure, seriously, like an actual text adventure. It puts a layer of what's like Messenger, like a texting service on your phone that's fake, that has characters you meet in the story of the game, and you talk to them and you make decisions, and eventually you have to like solve a murder or something like that. I don't know yet. I haven't gotten to the point. I have a serial killer calling me, and he actually calls and talks to you. It's pretty fucking cool. It's like what I consider a VR game. That gave me a whole other idea of how to make an actual, real virtual reality game, which you're not getting with those goggles. That's not actual virtual reality. We'll speak to that in another video, though. But it gave me a really wicked idea, which that is a whole series of values that were unlocked in me, potentialities that were made available, opportunities that arose, ideas, entire worlds of, open up because of that value, those values falling into place like locks and columns, unlocking doors in the psyche, opening up new avenues of existence. And I'm playing this game, and there's this little Tetris minigame in it that you have to play. And the Tetris minigame essentially is there's a board, and you have to put pieces on the board, and you have to lock them up in place like a puzzle to make them disappear. And you have to calculate ahead what pieces are going to fit where. You have like 3 pieces at a time. You need to know where you can put them strategically that's going to pop them into place. And so that puts an idea in my head. That little Tetris minigame, it has a value that's in my head now, a cue. And when I get back home, I pop on a video of talking about relativity and time and such. And I'm fascinated with time, of course. And it's talking about how the only differential really between the past and the future is that the past is defined, it's set, it's definite, you can go ahead and look at it and see it, while the future is not that. The future is not set, it's not fixed, it's you can't look at it, you can't see it, it's essentially not there. However, I'm thinking now, because of this Tetris minigame, put the idea in my head of plotting ahead, and of course I have the other values in place regarding being a director, spot casting, knowing how to play the game, knowing how to play the world like a chess game. I'm thinking, why not? Why can't the future be fixed? I mean, you can decide what's going to happen right now, and if you can move fast enough, you're sharp enough, and you know what you're doing, you know how to handle it, you can manage what's going to happen even with other people in order to coordinate the future in advance and make sure it happens, make certain of the future. You can look at it and set it in stone, say this is what's going to happen. You can make that decision, and for all intents and purposes, you are now looking at the future that does actually exist, because if you are reliable enough, if you're predictable enough, and you know yourself well enough to be able to say, yes, I'm going to do this, then you can indeed look at the future and set it in stone. Boom. And I'm thinking maybe this is kind of a goal to the game, really, that you're able to do that, that you're able to rely on yourself so well that you can say this is definitely going to happen. And when you're following synchronicities, you know what is and isn't going to happen, because the world is constantly telling you. It's always informing you. So I'm thinking maybe that's kind of a goal of the game, and that's a cool idea it puts in my head. But the video goes on talking about relativity and the difference between time zones, you could say, time dilation effects, which is that's a real fascination of mine. Time dilation, obviously, because I'm moving faster than most people. I want to know how that works, and we have ideas, but different videos. Now, they talk about this movie Interstellar, where the dude travels to another planet, he lands on the planet, and of course we know that for the most part, mass causes gravity. The more mass something has, the stronger the gravitational field, because it's warping time-space. It's sinking into the fabric of time-space, but not really. It's not two-dimensional, so you're not sinking. That's a whole different concept. But it's warping time-space around it, which causes gravity to get denser, which essentially is what gravity is. That's how gravity is happening. And so the more mass an object has, the denser the gravity, the faster time dilation is going to be moving faster. So when he lands on this planet, dude lands on this planet that's like super heavy, time's moving faster to the point, I think where they said that 1 hour on this planet equates to 7 years back on Earth, which is out fucking outrageous. There'd be no way he could walk on that planet, but let's just, for fiction's sake. Theoretically, that's posited what should happen via relativity says that if he's on this planet that has that much more mass, then on Earth 7 years are going to pass. He lands on the planet for 1 hour, takes off, and 7 years have transpired back on Earth. And I'm thinking, and I don't think anybody else has really caught on to this yet, so this might be a heads up. Why? Why would that happen? There's nothing to account for that happening, unless we are assuming that the time-space in which we are, the time-space we're perceiving, the four-dimensional time-space we are perceiving is in fact existing within a secondary uniform time-space that's consistently moving. Otherwise, there'd be no tracking. There'd be no tracking for it. There'd be nothing to compensate. You would require a backdrop in order for the calculations to even be made. Something would have to be keeping track of the differential. So now, essentially, one, might have kind of debunked relativity to an extent. Two, we have the ether back in play, which I told you a long time ago. The ether was not, tossing out the ether was a bad move. It's something we require, and here it is. That would account for what we used to call the ether that they tossed out when they made relativity for whatever reason. I don't see why or how, because obviously it is required. So that would account for what we're thinking the ether is. It's going to be a backdrop, overall vibration of a fundamental source field for the most part. That's keeping track of everything. And that would be where this source is observing this layer of time-space, this four-dimensional layer of time-space, and collapsing that wave function while we are existing within what is, for all intents and purposes, an entirely separated field of time-space, wherein we are collapsing the wave function. And this source is acting through us, through the fourth dimension, into the lower three dimensions, causing for us. It's acting as us, and it is collapsing the wave function through there. Do that facet. We being the vehicles. Now, that's a theory. I'm positing that's something, again, that's what these values unlock to this entire world of experience. But it goes on, we're speaking about the black hole in the video. Now, black hole's always been fascinating to me, and I'm going to tell you why. If you throw a monkey at a black hole, again, this is where all those cues and synchronicities have led us to the black hole. That's the voyage we're on. We're going to cross the threshold. So, and for anybody who's saying, well, he just wandered off and he's talking about something different, I get that a lot. No, this is what the point of it was. This is where it led to, the black hole and time-space relativity. So, anyways, if you throw a monkey at a black hole for whatever reason, that monkey's going to start, as it approaches terminal velocity, it's going to start moving faster and faster because the field's denser. But when that monkey hits and mind you, there's a lot of variables to account for in that don't make sense, but that's the theory behind it. That's what we suggest should happen because of relativity. When it hits the event horizon, it's just going to stop moving. You're not going to see it moving anymore. And the reason for this being, essentially, there are a lot of mathematics and whatnot that goes into it, but for the most part, what's happening is that right there at the threshold, beyond the event horizon, gravity gets so dense at the center of that black hole that time literally stops. Now, at this point, we can state verifiably that right there in outer space, beyond the event horizon, there is a point where nothing truly exists. And this goes both ways. This is, again, space, and what we're getting at here is space and perception. Magnetic compatibility has your perception. It's the gravity of your comprehension. So time, space, and comprehension, consciousness, are the same thing. There's no difference. It's just a different, that's going to be getting close to what that fourth dimension is, and we're actually touching on it here, so pay attention. There, beyond the event horizon, we have it going both ways. It's not just a point where time stops and nothing truly exists. Like, it's a point where you can state nothing truly exists, and at the same time you can state nothing, it's actually there. There is a point there, there's something there that we can define as being nothing. So on both hands, A, nothing truly exists, and B, nothing truly exists. And that's, again, duality is always going to be in play. That's a divine dichotomy. Eternity exists because of that divine dichotomy. It can't exist without it, and without eternity we have no time, space, we have no dimension whatsoever. That's what makes it all happen. And getting down to eternity is going to be where we find what's going to fix this problem with a theory of everything. But I'm going to posit something here that might help with it, though. But, as I said, the monkey's falling. From the monkey's perspective, it keeps falling into the center of the black hole, but from your perspective, time stops. That monkey just stops, which you wouldn't be able to see it because of the red shifting of the light. Gravity gets denser, the light gets denser, blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't be able to see the monkey. But essentially, if you were to see the monkey, it would be stopped. And the monkey, from its perspective, keeps falling and falling. And were the monkey to look outside from that black hole, which it can't, at that point, gravity's so fucking, time is warped there to the point where there is no out. You can't, and this is important, these are going to be metaphorical values that fit into play here. Pay attention to these values when speaking of the black hole is one of the greatest metaphors I've ever seen. And I think it is really the engine of existence in this sense. It's a point where our comprehension is coming from. But anyways, there is no out. There's only in, because that's how warped gravity is. You can only move in. You can't look out. But were you to be able to look out, what you would see, for the most part, is going to be reality itself and all time, ever, just smeared along the edge of that event horizon. Just everything that's ever happened or will happen, happening right now on the spot, all smashed together. That's what you would see from inside the event horizon. That event horizon looking outward would be all time, space that's ever happened, smeared together as one happening event, where time has stopped. And now that's where we are at a point of now, eternity. Again, that's what it's coming back to. For the most part, this is what your eyeballs are doing. Your eyeballs are warping light into your brain and bringing it in at from a fourth dimensional perspective. Time, space is folding in and coming to this point where all of the different senses and whatnot come together into one finite point. And you, being the person, you are essentially perceiving eternity from the point of now. There's only now. Everything that's ever happened or will happen is happening right now. And that's it. It's like you're looking out from the inside of a black hole. It's a black hole being a metaphor for you. Your comprehension is discerning now and here, which now plus here equals nowhere. Again, that's going to be a point approaching the boundary where things smear together, things become paradoxical. You can't make sense of things. Now and here are the 2 points you can't ever escape, no matter what you do. And now plus here equals nowhere. It's a cue. It's a trick. It's a neat little trick. But what's going to be existing for the most part outside of that contextual frame of reference wherein you're in the here now and that's all that's happening eternally, you're looking outward at the past and the future, potential past and future, which is essentially your imagination at this point. Doesn't really exist. You're creating it as it happens, and you are both creating the future and the past right now. That fourth dimension allows for this to happen. That's what we need to get to, where you guys can see that you can you can theorize and you can try to consolidate values regarding your ideology concerning a fourth dimension, but you have to see it happen to understand where I'm coming from here. That's what we're trying to get you guys. Now, theories regarding the black hole include one part of the black hole that I like is Stephen Hawking's idea of light or information escaping the black hole, that he thought it couldn't escape the black hole, and then turns out that the black hole might radiate quantum energy that's been rendered mute, really, that it's been so disfigured that it no longer functions as the information it originally did. It's not going to be, the energy of it's going to escape, but it's not going to be the same information. It's going to be deleted for the most part, and that's where they reach a problem. They don't think that's possible, and they don't want to reconcile it. And speaking to the coming together quantum relativity, you could say, directive relativity, that their idea is that can't happen because in the black hole the information would be receding into the center of the black hole. It'd be pulling in whilst it'd be emerging at the same time. It would have to do both, I guess, from that standpoint. I'm not that deep into physics where I understand why that's happening, but that's what they say. And they say that this violates certain principles, certain laws, because there can be no duplication of energy, which, energy can either be created nor destroyed, but there can be no duplicating energy because that violates the law of conservation. And this becomes a paradox wherein they can't go one way or the other. Both of these theories, they don't work insofar as their laws are concerned, what they're considering physics is. But again, physics is malleable. And this is the point where we come to understand that, because they're saying that this cannot be the case because there can be no duplication of energy, nor can there be any paradox. Yet it is the case. Because there can be, because there is paradox. Eternity is built off paradox. And yes, energy can be duplicated. That's the only way this is happening. There's that 1 second created in the black hole, a duplication of energy. You become two, become more. You have another self to reflect upon, the image in the mirror, and that becomes 1 second, which creates all time. Outward from that point where no time exists, where you're just eternally now, eternity essentially existing, and you're reflecting off of, everything that's ever happened, smeared all over the edges, and you essentially duplicate yourself. You become two pieces, two fractured values, two fractured shards that break into two or more identities, and they're able to reflect off of each other, which creates relativity. And that's how comprehension is creating physics, ultimately. I mean, that's at least an idea as to how it works on positing, because it makes perfect sense. It fits. And that's, I like how they raise that. But the thing about it, the problem with this is that it's the problem is acceptance. It's not figuring out what the actual physics is behind it. Why do you want a ridiculous, nonsense scientism explanation? Why would you want to explain where the universe came from and how it's happening via some physical model? That's fucking boring, and that would ruin the entire mystery. And it seems as though you're never going to get to it anyway, because you can't. But human beings were arrogant, and we want to think we can figure every last little thing out, and we can't give up on that. We can't let that habit go. We can't acknowledge and accept that, yes, there are facets to our existence that we cannot comprehend. That's how it happens. It's a mystery. It comes into play. That's essentially how everything can be created from out of nothing at all. Because we do have an origin factor in play that is incomprehensible. It's just simply that. Being incomprehensible is what makes it fucking possible. It's what makes anything and everything possible. It is a miracle. It is immaculate conception. So that's it really for this one. And put that out there. I'm sorry I ramble a little bit on it, but that's what I have to say. So love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Keelah, Taerve, siari, Namasté.